but I go dey fine. Pa, if you get chance, if you call me. No, abeg, sorry, I fit call you, I no know. Anytime you see the message, try for call me direct because I never take any wrong, no dey good. Now within night I go guard, I dey for guard now before I fit call. I sell all my for house. I will come back for una again. Even I know they see me, I no worry, I dey alive, I dey fine.
My fellow Ambazonians, I was listening to the voice of General Ivo, and it was extremely very difficult to listen. GI was the bravest and the strongest son of the soil, and we will forever be grateful for the sacrifices that he made. This evening, to have a comprehensive discussion on serious issues, to talk to you about where we are, where we are headed. The chairman of the War Council will be joining me for us to have this discussion. He will be able to tell us the state of our defense, which is the core pillar of our liberation strategy. Let's welcome the chairman of the War Council, please.
I hope you are getting me. How are you doing today?
Good, good.
Hello,
Good to
Dr.
see you.
AYABA. Are you getting me?
Yes, do you hear me?
I am getting you loud and clear. Thanks a lot. I mean,
All right.
when you, yeah, when you get that voice, that is an unmistakable voice. Sometimes I think I think we decry the fact that Ambazonians did not really have role models, revolutionary role models as other people have had. Where are our own Thomas Sankaras? You know, where are our own Samura Machel? But these gentlemen have built a legacy. Commanders like General Ivo, they have made it such that kids coming up, Ambazonian kids, will no longer be looking at the Umnyobes, looking at the Thomas Sankara in their own backyard. They will be able to point heroes that are able to stand shoulder to shoulder with these great revolutionaries in Africa. And that is just part of what we have accomplished as a people within these past few years. The defense of our land is strong. As you indicated, this is the foundation of everything that we do. We are a people that have always been slow to engage in a fight. We pride ourselves with being gentlemen, whatever the connotation of that word means. That is how Ambazonians have prided themselves. We look at international norms and laws as sacrosanct, almost as if somebody descended with tablets from the mountain from God. That is how Ambazonians have treated these things. Even in the face of real disregard of these norms, we have always adhered to them. It seems as if we go out there, put ourselves and say that, look at me, I am the best citizen of the world, as if there is a price for that. We came very slowly to the table to realize that we are the only ones who have our own best interests at hand. Nobody give a damn about who we are, about our human rights, about our right to life. Nobody gives a damn, no matter what laws are on the books, except us. And so we engage in it of our life, and we will win. And I tell you, just the past few days, just take for example, within the past couple of weeks, you have had 5 serious battles at Ndurot, at a single location, Ma, that La Republique has lost more than 20 soldiers there. 5 serious battles within a week at Ma. And I cannot thank too much the Bui command and the commanders who have drawn a line in the sand that La République du Cameroon are not going to cross through that route. And no matter the reinforcement that they go back and they bring, that command is on the road, engaging them and making them bleed for the crimes they have committed in our land. I look at our Bamenda Brigade. Take, for example, just the battle at Mulang. You know, you have our guys being able to dismantle their machine of war. They are so proud when they bring these their tankers that they have only slits to put their eyes in, and they believe that they are invincible in those things. I remember the day, I mean, you can remember the days when some of our guys, they will have this their far and this their little AKs that they have, and our guys have what you can only call augmented chavums, you know, and they will handle these guys, and they have evolved. And the most important thing there is that we don't keep standstill. As they evolve, we are evolving. As they evolve, we also are evolving, and the absolute evidence of that is when you get things like Ma happening within a week. They are unable to break through our lines, you know. When you have something like Mulang, when you have, like, just think about Chualam, you know, when these guys, they had, I think that it was 3 of these their caterpillars, you know, that is totally, I mean, even rocket proof, that they had there. What did they also have? They had loss in there, and then they having this 2 brandy and some a 7 ton, and they could not stand our guys when our guys ambushed them at Chuala. The only, even with all of those things, the thing that they could do was run to the Mezam Bridge and then stand there and start lobbing launchers at our guys. And you had backup that came and was just removing bodies from the 7 ton and the hillocks, and in that their indiscriminate shooting there, they killed a child, killed a mother. So I have absolute faith and absolute confidence that they are done. The only thing that I believe remains right now is how do we manage to get the zones that we can push them out of their enclaves that they come out of and parade along our villages as if they have power, and then go back into those enclaves. Is how to get them out of those enclaves, because once those enclaves start falling, we are in the end game. And so Mr. President, I can tell you that the defense of our land is strong.
Thanks a lot, DefChet. Thank you very much. I think you've been the master of defense for the past 31 years. And you are not only someone who sends people to battle, you've led one of the toughest battles we have witnessed in our struggle, the battle to overtake Bafut. That was, I think, on the seat of March. Thank you, my brother. Now, I would like to say a couple of things, because sometimes when we have these discussions, Ambazonians see it from a very vague perspective. Ambazonians become interested in how does things that you have described give us independence. Because Ambazonians see the War of Liberation as a movie or like a football match, where in the movie, you find battles going on, territories being cleared, there is an outright victor and an outright loser, and you can depict that in a movie of 2 hours. But in a War of Liberation, they are kind of not clear how we are going to translate these battles into the total collapse of the occupation. I would like to take some few minutes first to explain this. Secondly, and more importantly, Ambazonians are doubting all the time if we are making progress, because the people who have always been at the losing end have always prioritized, the negatives. We have not taken time to cheer up ourselves to take pride in the achievement that we have made. I will clarify that first, so that Ambazonians begin to have a positive mindset and trump the progress we have made, rather than trump some of the deliberately infused negatives and perceived chaos that haunts their mindset. For both of us and our staffs and the brave men and women that we work with, they are confident. Now, the first thing I would like to clarify is this, because Ambazonians have always asked, are we making progress? Now, let's look at where we started and what we set out to achieve. when we clear-cut strategy. I hope I'm back. I got myself lost a few moments ago.
Yeah, no,
Now,
I am getting you.
okay, that's great. Now, let's look at a couple of things. We said we wanted to make the territory ungovernable. That was a key objective. That was a key objective. And in making the territory ungovernable, we had to dismantle the institutions of occupation that made governance possible. So the objective of making the territory ungovernable had a strategy. The strategy was to eliminate, the system of governance from the DOs, the parliamentarians, the mayors, any other institution that supported La Republique's political governance. If Ambazonians are fair to themselves, they will conclude that in the first 2 years since when you signed that declaration deploying our men to begin the defense of our homeland, achieve that particular objective sweepingly. We made the territory ungovernable, send the SDOs and the DOs into armor cars and bulletproof vests. So-called parliamentarians and mayors escaped from the territory. We achieved that key defense strategy. The second, which we set out to achieving, was stopping the level of exploitation, what I call economic impunity, because we realized that Cameroon depended much on our resources to oil its military machinery and to take care of its public service. So what we thought was, if you undermine their ability to exploit, it will become difficult for them to achieve cohesion amongst the military, and having achieved cohesion within their public service. They will not be able to pay workers. And most importantly, when countries go to borrow money, international institutions want to know about their credit rating. Sometimes a massive population gives you a credit rating because the international system can expect taxes. Your collaterals can also be your industries, your natural resources. And so Cameroon had used the natural resources within Ambazonia as its collateral in borrowing money from international institutions. So apart from stopping them exploiting resources to pay their military and their public service, we stopped them from using our own industries and natural resources as their collateral for borrowing massively at the international level. Did we achieve that objective? We shut down CDC. We shut down key parastatals. We made it impossible for timbers to be exploited and degrading our environment as it was before. We stopped the exploitation of different materials. We made the territory ungovernable. We reduced economic exploitation extensively. Yep. Another key objective,
which increasing their cost of occupation.
Exactly. Because once the cost of occupation was higher than the benefit, it takes away the incentive of remaining in Ambazonia.
Yeah.
The other key objective which we put in place was this. We realized that for 60 years, Cameroon had made itself the judge on the outcome of the conflict between us and them. It basically was the occupier, the killers, the prosecutor, and the judge at the same time. We could not negotiate with Cameroon. Like lawyers could not negotiate, teachers could not negotiate. Even in creating institutions within Ambazonia was basically impossible. So we realized that our only chance in defeating Cameroon on the issues through discussion was to move, the body of adjudication from Yaoundé to the international system.
Yeah.
Internationalizing the struggle. Cameroon created Commission A, Commission B, Commission D, Commission C to deceive the international community that it had the willingness and the capability of being the judge in the conflict between us and them. We fought hard to discredit, and they got mad and became brutal, committing genocide.
Yeah.
Finally, even with so-called national dialogue, international parliaments, institutions began to speak. First, they started describing us as a geographic region of Cameroon, northwest, southwest. We pushed forward. The US ambassador in Yaoundé called us the first time Ambazonians, which is our own name. Very soon, they moved again to describing us in different ways. Now they have settled on separatists, and we know definitely they will move to the stage through what you are doing on the ground to give us the name which we have assigned to ourselves. And so we've successfully internationalized the struggle, make it impossible for Cameroon to be the killer, the prosecutor, and the judge at the same time. Now, these are the objectives which we set out to achieving. And it comes to the second question. How will these get La République out of our homeland? And Ambazonians must know.
Just a second, before you even go to that second question, let me interject on that first question, and then you continue. Because sometimes you are saying these things like that. I can imagine a lot of people are sitting and just thinking that, how could this man be thinking like this? Where do these things come from? You know, so you were, I think you had a bullhorn when the delegations to the UN were coming back and they dropped at the Mungo Bridge, and they had this parade driving up the street from Mungo Bridge there through Mutengene to Boya, with our population hailing them. And I think they had bought a UN flag that they brought with them. So our population absolutely saw the UN already giving them a flag. That flag might basically have been our flag for all the information that were given to us. But that exactly are the life experiences on which, when you start hitting public policy and driving the people with the messaging and the strategy of how these things are going to work and how they can work, is all those experiences that you had with toothless delegation going and traveling from basement to basement in America and coming back that they have heard from the UN. You know, issues like, how do I put this? We had already reached the stage where by 96, where we knew that, one, we cannot allow La République to be the judge, the jury, the executioner. We had seen all the empty rhetoric of what the international organ can do and what our leadership can take any rhetoric, or even just seeing the building of the UN, what snake oil they can sell to the Ambazonian people. People think that when they look at today, some people, they forget the public enthusiasm that gripped our nation after AAC 1, AAC 2, and these guys moved towards independence. They look at the recent 2016 and they are thinking that that was a popular. Our people had reached that level long ago. Long ago. So this idea that the ground has suddenly shifted and just the people power will get us what will get us there. We had already experienced this, and we knew that that was a lie. No way that it will get us there. We as a people will need to take the type of actions that the international instruments will realize that there is no more way to put these people to sleep. Sorry to cut you there.
No, I think that was good. That was good background information, because I was at the when Pa Foncha and Muna and the others, Mola, they came from the UN. I was at the Mongo Bridge, as you said. I was sitting in a bus with a megaphone, and for those who see this picture, we were standing on the other side as the delegation walked from the other side from La Republique, and we jumped onto a bus, and we were using the megaphone. Akwanga was there, and we were talking, and Ambazonians came out in their thousands, and we arrived Mount Mary to thunderous applause from our population. And therefrom, there was massive movement across the territory. There were hundreds of thousands of people at the Bamenda Mini Stadium to receive the delegation. They went to Batibo, they went all over the territory. Now, why did we fail? And that would bring me to answer the next issue: how all what we are doing today is going to lead to independence. This conversation is important for Ambazonians to have deeper understanding of what it takes to liberate the people, and so they can be calmer and show understanding in terms of perseverance. Now, there is a gap between euphoria and independence. That gap is even bigger when it comes to independence. But the gap between euphoria and political, now, so but anybody who knows Mr. Bia, we've been fighting against that guy for close to 30 years or more. Anybody who knows Mr. Bia knows that Mr. Bia has never blinked. He has never blinked. Mr. Bia believed in two things, just two things, and it has worked all the time. He believes in the gun. He believes in bribery and corruption. These are the only two things Mr. Bia believes in. Even Mr. Bia blinks at a particular time is a maneuver to take away the momentum from those who are resisting him. And the reason why every set of people resisting Mr. Bia within Ambazonia have failed, from John Frundi, you have the Kontang Elad, you have the Ambassador Henry Fossong, the Ambassador Piers, you have all the others coming up to late Chief AYABA and Pound 4 of today. Why they have failed? Because you said in 1995, when we wrote my pledge, that we match our ideals to the method of the oppressor. Yeah. The reason why they have failed is because Mr. Bia has offered a bait many times and fallen for that bait. Ella did. The Henry Fossongs, the Ndoki Muketes, they did. Yeah. Even within this period, today, Mr. Bia has offered bait through national dialogue. He did that to the Tassangs. to the Agbobalas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They took the bait, believing that it was a concession in good faith. And we kept reminding them that bait is a bait that will destroy you personally and will undermine the resistance. Because from a perspective of nationalism, the nationalism in Ambazonia is very weak because of almost 60 years of political intoxication, corruption, and a cultivated dependency on Cameroon.
Yeah.
So people say you can't buy the food that feeds you. In resisting to the end. Ambazonians also want to see the end. Everybody today feels like they are going to reach Boya until you begin to think that you will put your blood and others ride on that to gain freedom. It will never achieve it. How to gain independence? By undermining their political legitimacy, dismantling their structures of occupation and colonialism, and stopping them from export sources. The way we gain independence is simple. The moment the cost of Cameroon's occupation is so high, higher than the benefit, it will be impossible for Cameroon to sustain political cohesion in Cameroon. Because the grief is to power in Cameroon, not to occupy Ambazonia. So when it comes to the choice of losing power in Yaoundé, and that's what happened in Ethiopia with the conflict in Eritrea. When Eritreans their own system because of the war when Ethiopians began to rise up against their own system because the cost of the war in Eritrea was higher than the benefit. The regime could not sustain the occupation of Eritrea. Secondly, there is a possibility to defeat La République in the same way like did with the Rwandan Patriotic Front. Basically, we have control of it. Dynamic, of course, but we can make it to be static. We have control of massive areas of our land. That's where our people, our students marching, our population jubilating and celebrating, October 1. If we are able to change this dynamic control to static, over to you, Chairman. What will it require to change the dynamic control to static control?
Yeah, it seems as if I'm losing you. The thing, when I'm with you, I I keep smiling most of the time because you say a lot of the things that I don't know. You say a lot of the things that I need to say. But I think one of the if our people understand what Houdini is, the great magician, at this particular moment, the most important thing for La République du Cameroun is not control, because they know they don't have it. The illusion of control is projection. So yes, we can sit here and look at that projection. You see a convoy of heavy military moving through a village. At some point, they are moving through that village and moving through that region. You have our forces there watching them. At certain point, the question is, do I engage these guys, and what is the military objective of engaging them here or at this point? And you are discovering that this convoy is a show of La République du Cameroun that they also have dynamic control. They don't have control, they have dynamic control. That they can do this Houdini, this walkthrough or walkabout that they go, and then they go back. But they have given the illusion both to La République, the international community, and our people that they control that place because they are able to move through it. Those are our communities. Our people live in those communities. In some of them, our soldiers live in them and watch them. And the only equation there is, what is the objective of picking them up now? And we should get to that point that Mr. President, you were just indicating. How do you move from this dynamic control to that static control? And it will be when we start preventing sectors. And there are sectors. When you start having sectors where this projection, this Houdini, this magician act that they go out for PR doesn't happen. Take for example, let us take for example the fun of Saw, right? Where they had to bring him with helicopter gunships, install him in his palace for a few hours, take him back out. They have demonstrated that is like a great Houdini act. Oh, he is here, now he is there. Because they have lost control. Because even with their enablers, at certain sectors, there is no way that they are able to implement static control. Now, we are going to reach the level where there are two permanent RPG stationed somewhere around the palace of the Phonom, say for example, and it becomes an impossibility for a helicopter to come low to be able to land there. So you have already taken away their dynamic control. You have taken away their ability of projection. You have taken that away. That helicopter can no longer bring him, and he tours his palace for a few minutes, and they rush him through and get into that helicopter and leave. You already established there with two RPG permanent around somewhere around that palace. You have already established that static control at that position. We are going to get there. So some of these things, you look at it and you are like, this, are we making progress? What type of progress are we making when the Phonom Saw can go to his palace and vote? But just some of the ceremonial things around that should be what you look and you lean back in your chair, cross your leg, and you laugh. Because you know that you are winning. And with just one or two certain things tilted, certain instruments acquired in your hands, you know that you have already taken over this place and this location. So I am hoping that the clarity of this is very the clarity of it that people can see. In some of the discussion as we were as you were laying out how our people move from this popular, how you move from this euphoria, convert the euphoria to absolute purpose, and that purpose leading to a victory. That's very, very important. It's very, very important. And I just want to jump to some of what has befallen the struggle based on people looking at euphoria and seeing victory through the euphoria. And it is what has bedeviled us, what has crippled this struggle. Look, the time that I and you were on our way to Bamenda in 97, excuse me, there were not thousands of people on the streets. Not for a long time. Not for years. But we were going there under war. We were going there as military leaders. That's how we were going in 96, in 97. That's how we were entering Bamenda, as military leaders. Not because we had seen thousands of people marching in Boya or thousands of people marching in Victoria. It was a calculation on how we are going to move from the status quo that the leadership of the SCNC at the time has put the Ambazonian people in. They were slowly but surely killing every aspect of the Ambazonian liberation movement with their cowardice. Some of them had already been bought. Some of them have already gotten their position, and some of them thought that they were in a political leadership and not a revolutionary leadership. That was the build-up to our guys moving in Jakiri and Razé to get the explosives in order to bring down the Mongo bridge that joined us with La République du Cameroon. That was the impetus of our guys hitting the gendarmerie post in Jakiri and the others, thinking that those youth league members that were arrested on their way to Bamenda were in there. That was the impetus of our guys in Uku taking over Uku, thinking that we had already given the signal for the Ambazonian people to the revolutionary uprising to take place, and we capture our land. That was under that we're entering a war zone. Because if you remember, the whole of that hospital roundabout, our guys were parading, already taking it over. So when I say that this is a very, very critical point that you made, is what happened when opportunists saw thousands of our people regularly coming out 2016, 2017. And they suddenly see an opportunity, thinking that there are people who march like that with 3 branches and put them in power in Boya. They had no idea about the hard work of a revolution. None. And that is why after 2 months, they discover that, oh, this might take years. And you start seeing betrayers of ships. You start seeing mistakes that leaders will make that they are going to discuss, and they are caught, all of them, like little rats and dumped in jail. You start seeing people who had no idea start reacting to the fact that, oh, we thought that this thing would take months, and they are trying to end the struggle of the revolution in months, and they make mistake after mistake after mistake, and instead push the suffering of our people further and further along. So that is very, very instructive, of people taking euphoria and want to jump 5 steps and thinking that that will get them to that. And here we are today. And here are those people running around, opening their pockets, showing to La Republique, what can you put in our pockets? From the Swiss charade to prisoners negotiating. You know what? It is a disgrace. But it's a disgrace, and we will fix it. So I don't know, Mr. President. I think I've gone through some tangents.
No. You have made a compelling case, and I would talk a bit about the euphoria and its deceptive nature, and I would focus on how we are gonna get this thing. No, before we will do that at the last hour, where we are headed to. But I want us to transition into some things you've raised. Where does diplomacy fit? And what are the historical context within which liberation struggles deal with traitors? And why is it, why are Ambazonians, we have a lot of pity, even for those who sat in the back time and again. But on the issue of euphoria, I think Ambazonians would agree that sometimes it's the wordings of leadership. Most Ambazonians are Christians. Those who are Muslims, I don't know much about the Quran, but even the Bible says salvation is not going to be easy. That it will be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for most of us to see the kingdom of God. So liberation is like gaining salvation. It requires discipline, being only talking about, salvation, but you keep violating the principles of the 10 commandments. Or you talk about independence and you're unable to put the sacrifice in blood and treasure for it to happen. Euphoria is a critical tool in mobilizing a population. It's critical to achieving the outcome of independence. When people are excited, massive groundswell of participation. But leadership must also be able to that is going to be able to get us to the objective. And that's why the ADF collapsed. It has its own disadvantage. Euphoria creates of ordinary men semi-god or demigod. The worst thing that can ever happen in a liberal struggle is when it starts with massive euphoria, with some leaders emerging. It is very difficult to take those leaders from the pedestal that euphoria has taken them to into the bushes. Look at Mandela. Mandela did not emerge to become a popular leader before going into jail. He became more popular while in jail. if he achieved the level of popularity that he achieved in jail while being outside, it would have been very difficult for Mandela to be hiding houses, going to Libya to train how to use guns. In the case of Ambazonia, take John Frundi, for example. John Frundi achieved the level of a demigod. I mean, all tales were spoken about John Frundi. People talked about God writing on their laps about a bookseller who became president. When Frundi was going places, women were their wrappers on the floor. That is, he made old moms on himself for his defense. We were there. I mean, slept out of his home for a month. How do you take such a man from the comfort of his home, where thousands of people across the entire territory were amassing food, drinks? He had bodyguards with walkie-talkies. He had executives who already saw themselves in governance position. How do you convince such a man to abandon the pathway that leads him to failure, to the difficult pathway that goes through the bushes and the forest and the jungle that might lead him to victory? It's impossible. It's
He will have to be an
impossible.
he will have to be an extraordinary man. You know, he will have to be an extraordinary man. One of those very few in a million.
Yes.
You know, you will have to be like people like Gandhi.
And
It will have to be those type of transcendent figures in history. You know, no, I was just interjecting there because when you were talking like that, I was going back to 1960 as you were talking about this. It's like we are a cursed people, because when you were talking about this, I was trying to match. I was trying to match like. I'm sorry to. I mean, you know me. I always have this philosophy. I always, from time to time, I go to this Patrick Henry speech where he always make this point that when he stood up at the Virginia Assembly, and he made this point that okay, he sees a lot of his friends and colleagues and neighbors, and the thing for him is that he will become treason to his land if because he is afraid of hurting these people's spirit who are his friends, his neighbors, and colleagues. He doesn't say the truth. He will be committing treason to his land. Now, this is my own truth. So when I say this, and it's my own truth, what I see. So when I talk about the Ayokta base and God bless his soul, the Sakos, and I put them with the Frundis and when you were making that point about how do you take somebody like Frundi, who had out there achieved this type of thing, and he goes in. I try to think about the biography of the Funchas, that, you know, and it's almost the same thing. Almost the same thing. These guys had already been representatives, you know, in Enugu and all that, accustomed to be the rulers of the land, you know, and it is such. I ask this question whether we are a cursed people, because just think about it, boy. You have, if I look at behind me, just think about 1960. 19, let us even say 1961 or December 1960. December 1960, you had Foncha down here in Boya. You had him sitting down here. You had him sitting with a House of Chiefs. You have him sitting with a parliament. December 1960. Let us go back this day, 1960. That is where this man was sitting. On this side, you have somebody, Nnamdi Azikiwe, calling himself president of this entity, Nigeria. That's who he was calling himself, president, with his flag. On this side, you have Mr. Amadou Ahidjo calling himself president of Cameroon with his green, red, yellow flag. And here, you have somebody calling himself the prime minister of the people of AMBAZONIA. Just imagine that it was Kwame Nkrumah sitting on this desk. Imagine somebody like Samora Machel sitting on this desk on that day, December 1960. Just imagine. Imagine yourself sitting on that desk on that December 1960. Just imagine. So you see a situation of a man sitting here. If he turns to his right, he has a president of Nigeria. He turns to his left, he has a president of Cameroon, and he is sitting as prime minister of this land. How on earth was it possible that this man became a beggar of positions to fit himself? You know, we are in the realm of talking about diplomacy. And sometimes the way I see myself, I believe is simple. It's not, and somebody might say that's extremely, no. I am just Benedict Kwa. I know that I am an Ambazonian. I know that I have the right, as anybody on this earth have the same right. I don't have a doctor in front of my name. I never look at you as being above me or below me. I am not a chief. So I don't look at anybody as being above me or below me. My skin is like chocolate, cocoa. I don't look at anybody having, whether skin looks yellow or what. I don't look at that person as above or below me or more than me, less than me. So there is absolutely no way on earth where I am going to sit down and I see you attempt to make me into something that I am not. Because I don't define myself by how you define me. I define myself by how I define me from the bottom of my stomach. That is how I define myself. So when I see the Swiss sit down and they say that they are mediators in a dialogue, that they cannot even call my name. You know, slaves, they did not come to Africa. The Europeans did not come to Africa with guns blazing and pick up people as slaves and go with them. They came and shook hands. They even talk how we are brothers and brought out the Bible and show us how God created man and all that. But within a few years, we had chains around tilling the farm in plantations far away from our home. I am more than what those my ancestors are. I should be able to look at their history and learn. And so when somebody comes to me and is unable to even call my name or acknowledge my name, but wants to be a name, as the slaves were taken and they were given their master's name. If I tell you I am Ambazonian and you are coming as a mediator and you cannot call me by my name, you want to assign me a name, what reason do I have to even engage with you? If I am sitting here as the prime minister and there is a president here and there is a president here, why should I be talking to these people before I decide who I am? The more things change, the more they remain the same.
Let me say something.
Go ahead. I am just.
Thanks a lot. I admire the analogy that you showed behind there, because I was wondering, how is it possible that a guy sitting in Boya as prime minister with his House of Chiefs, House of Parliament, and then on his left is a crumbling political institution that his own country has given political asylum. On the other side is where they had just walked away. How is it possible that they even entertain the possibility with the United Nations? Gone. Understand who succumbed to Paul Biya, that they are afraid to die. The United Nations could not invade. It could not do Foncha anything. Foncha and Endele simply succumbed. And our generation now is faced with the choice of who is the better evil. Is it Endele who asks us to go back into Nigeria that we are walked away from? Or is it Foncha who said we should join La République du Cameroon that is treating us the way it is treating us today? But I want to answer the question you asked. How is it possible that we are entertaining the Swedes? But first, you talked about, imagine if it was Samora sitting there, or it was who's this gentleman from Ghana again?
Kruma.
Now, in Kruma, there was a time when Queen Elizabeth was faced with a stark choice. Nkrumah was pivoting towards the Russians. And Buckingham Palace secretary indicated during the prime ministerial briefing to the Queen of England that there might be a problem with the Commonwealth of Nations, because Nkrumah was pivoting towards the Russians. I can assure you what power brings to a people. It brings respect and recognition. The Queen of England traveled to Accra. In going to Accra, the advisors in the Buckingham Palace totally refused it because they thought Nkrumah was too radical and was going to humiliate the Queen. The Queen went to Accra and was received by Nkrumah. And the Queen used all the charm that she could. Yes, she won Nkrumah to remain in the Commonwealth, but could not change Nkrumah's perspective of how he saw the world, and to decide who to trade with, and not to be aligned with a single block. Now, imagine we were sitting in Boya in 1960 with all the institutions that we had. Because I'm doing this in comparison to where we are today. We are in exile, 6 stars away from the theater of operation. 6,000 miles with almost no support from a particular country. Foncha had the vote of more than 50 countries. He had UN resolutions, instruments. He had international law, customary and treaty on his side. Our generation even has to clarify the legal foundation upon our claim for independence is. We have to explain the legality of the invocation of the right to self-defense. Foncha didn't have that, because any attempt by Ijo to cross into Ambazonia would have been seen as aggression in violation of the UN Charter. Foncha had all the tools. How is it possible? And it brings me back to what I said. When people are in a position of power and they have not struggled, they have not earned it in a particular way, have not gone through the trenches, it is easy for them to compromise. It is easy for them to compromise. And these men compromise a lot. They betrayed one another. But now, let me talk a bit about the Swiss. I know as the chairman of the War Council, cabinet meetings, you have been opposed to any form of interaction with the Swiss.
Oh, Mr. President. I know you will get there. But the most difficult thing for me to reconcile, is a people that treats us as being dumb. I mean, I will take it if you come to me and you say, you know what, or you start and you tell the world, it might not be diplomatic, but at least you are not abusing my intelligence to tell me that I have thousands, billions of dollars to win from La République du Cameroon. So I cannot be seen as being a straight, or how do you put this? A straight interlocutor between you. So I cannot even call your name. Can you work under this condition? Don't stand in front of the world and you are talking that you are in the part of doing dialogue with these people, and the world is listening. Why you cannot even call my name? While you are even unable to address me by my name. I mean, La République might decide that, you know what? You call these people's name, it is against us. That is true. And you can tell La République, we need to get these parties, we need to get this together, and the world has given me that charge. If you are doing this as the Swiss, as just a Swiss, this thing, do what you like. Done. And convince other countries that you are the best candidate to do this when you don't have the courage to stand up to genocides and ethnic cleansers. I have no doubt, and I'm going to put it here, and I know that you have no doubt in your mind that we are going to beat La République in Ambazonia. I have no doubt. I know that you have no doubt. Our people should have no doubt. Maybe there is a need for us to act as if we are going to be responsible international partners the day that we have our independence. Maybe there is that need. But if it is a need that we need what the Swiss are selling in order to gain our freedom, I can tell you no. We don't need it. We are going to beat La République du Cameroon, and if they are not careful, La République du Cameroon will crumble. If they keep at this war, they themselves will crumble. I'm sorry to cut you. I know you know when we get to this part, it gets me.
That was good. That was good. That was good. That was good. No, I agree with you, Mr. Devchair. You have already defeated them. The problem is Ambazonians are still confused. You know, we have defeated La République du Cameroon. We've humiliated them. Nation as a state that claims to have monopoly of this of our country. We have put them in armor cars, in bunkers, and we have explained a couple of things and Zonians. Why sometimes I tolerate certain things that are really, really antithetical to the very things that we fight for. And because the level at which we are as leaders, Ambazonians are not at that level. And because we are acting on their behalf, we have to be sensitive to the fact that they are not at our level. You and Law and a couple of others, the vice president and all the executive, there will be no discussion even on collaboration, unity, or Swiss talk. It will never happen. Left us. And I can assure you that if this was not a people's driven war of liberation, where we campaign in the same public spaces to get our people up to speed, I wouldn't have ever tolerated the Zaria Mafia, let alone have any discussion with any of the architects of the Zaria Mafia. Because the amount of pain, the amount of tragedy, the level of political and financial corruption that emanated from a desire of a few to project themselves by every means possible, we will never be able to recover as a people from that historic mistake. But that is what I call objective analysis. And you are a student of the history of wars of liberation. They happen. And this is the dirty nature of politics. And so no matter how you feel and think about these things, you must find a way of understanding that speed up the day that the people are free. If I had taken the kind of radical stance which I was supposed to take in the face of Amazonia, why? They would have seen us as being disruptive. They would have seen us in the description of those who hated our gods or fighting for power. They would have seen us as, you know, I would have seen us in every way, form, or shape. But I understood that it would take a while for Ambazonians to begin to see the truth, for the veil to be taken off their faces, for the euphoria to go away and reality begins to set. That whole seems to the same about the Swiss. You said no country, no people fighting for independence would have tolerated the Swiss for one day. I said it, the Aceh liberation movement rejected HD. They were partially based in Finland. They rejected HD completely. But they had leverage. They had a lot of leverage. You know, a Finnish businessman who was close to the Aceh liberation movement was also close to an Indonesian prime minister. And the Aceh liberation movement was able to leverage that contact and convince the Indonesians to accept, you know, a Finnish mediation. And that's how the Swiss were kicked out. If you also study Swiss involvement or HD's involvement in conflict management, transformation, or resolution, they are mainly involved in conflicts to maintain the status quo. That is why they always end up with the integration of fighters into the existing political structure. That's what they did in Syria. Ambazonians would take note that the Syrian rebels they were fighting around Damascus. And the moment the mediation of the Swiss came into play, the resistance collapsed. The Swiss are involved in Central African Republic. They've also been involved in Colombia. All of the conflicts that the Swiss have been involved in, there was hardly a question of the right to external self-determination. So they don't have the experience in dealing with conflict that leads to independence. And that's why I could have immediately said, also based on the fact that they were describing us as a geographic region of Cameroon, they didn't know who we are, and they were playing all this hanky-panky. The process, they were acting both as mediators, and they were acting in every way, form, or shape. You didn't see that neutrality. When in Ambazonian leader, they were also seeing themselves as trying to facilitate and act as independent judges between Ambazonia and Cameroon. They had this arrogance at the beginning because they saw us vulnerable. They saw us lacking of a deep sense of nationalism. They saw us as, corruptible financially and politically. And so we had all the signs plastered on our that could be slaughter. It was, if we stood out and said we will entertain nothing at all, Ambazonians wouldn't see. Ambazonians would buy the narrative being hit by others that we were simply warmongers. And this is what the DEF chair have argued. In most conflicts, you can talk of warmongering in leaders that are entrenched in areas where there is diamond, there is gold, there is oil, where those leaders are benefiting from the prolongation of the war. Warmongering. We gain nothing pushing this war one day. Personally, we gain nothing. We gain we have no financial benefit. We have no political benefit. So why should we be warmongering? And we thought the best way was to dismantle the facade that the Swiss had constructed and marketed to a few Ambazonians. And we knew it was going to be brick by brick to dismantle it, to education and effective proposition of an alternative that is workable. And that's what the Vice President, the Secretary of State, the Secretary for International Recognition, the Secretary General, and others, they did. We told them what works. We provided alternative systems that have worked. And gradually, we spoke. Now they even started begging, okay, just manage, just do it. If it doesn't work, you can come out. And I was like, excuse me? You know it's not gonna work. So why the Swiss and the international system have vexation to the spirit? I think strategy we have pursued has brought Ambazonians on the same pedestal as ourselves. They have come to the realization that what we saw a few years backward, whether in terms of political configurations, in terms of diplomacy, and why we hated the Swiss process, has turned out to be true. Us in terms of people and ensuring that post-independence stability is assured. And I'm very confident that we have achieved a milestone in terms of diplomacy. As Ambazonians know, as I wrote today, when we resisted the Swiss, that's when they brought in the UN. They saw that it was impossible for the Swiss to get us convinced. And the UN, seeing the deterioration of the situation, the genocide, also decided to come in. And we told me, you're French. The only reason we tolerated Mr. Fall for a while is like when we told him, listen, you come from Guinea. Guinea has a long history of anti-colonial struggles and resistance against France's involvement within the continent. It's one of the only countries that refused to initially to sign the Franco-African Pact, the colonial pact. And so we gave him an olive branch, but he basically buckled. The excuses given why Cameroon would not to negotiation, that Karina Tumi was arrested. Ambazonia has a right to arrest any enabler, anyone who by omission or commission seeks to aid, the colonialism of our country, and that students were killed in it's laughable. Cameroon murdered the kids in Kuma, murdered the kids in Gabo, is committed hundreds of massacres, burned villages. And if the United Nations could accept such a stupid excuse, and then we're going to be left to be seen, because coming.
No, I was just laughing that um, he should really have felt embarrassed, even opening his mouth and giving those as reasons, because he should have laughed and just told them, I cannot even repeat this anywhere out of the room that you are telling me this, because this is so laughable. And I know I'm going to put you in a bit of a bind here with what I am saying, but there is no way on earth that we are going to ever sit and look at the Swiss as not being culpable in the deaths of Ambazonians. And this is my diplomatic language that I am using. Because whether by commission or omission, the Swiss provided thousands of dollars to the Buherberts, to the Sakos, the Crisanus, the Akwangas. By omission or commission, they provided thousands of dollars to these people, and some of those dollars made their way to the ground. And the aim of that was to destroy the Ambazonian defense internally so that when their counterparts, when the Ambazonians who were sitting at their table say that they are ready to deal, our people could be sold whatever was put in front of them and there will be no resistance from the ground. I know that sometimes these international institutes and countries get into conflicts with good intentions. At this moment, I cannot determine, the War Council cannot determine whether the Swiss intentions were good or bad in the funds that were funneled and how they made their way down and caused deaths in Ambazonia. You look at these things that Wonja, you look at this thing that this Cameroon bee, who is moving in traditional boy, are doing in the street, Wonja. Those are ethnic cleansing. Those are crimes against humanity. We know that based on attempts to neutralize the resistance on the ground in order to foster the Swiss effort, these types of actions were encouraged and financed. Some of that money will be traced to the Swiss, or the money that came from the Swiss. Because some of those sitting at their table, the Crisanos, the CHOs, were directly responsible for that. We know the 23 ADF that were massacred in Kumbu. I am laying these things more in the fact that there are causes and there are effects. So when the Swiss remove monies and promises are made that the ADF can be neutralized on the ground, the one thing that they should know, and any of these foreign countries and institutes who want to get involved in a conflict should understand, is that the people, our people who posture as the leaders of our people, willing to betray our right to sovereignty, our liberation, on their table for money, let them know that those people have shown themselves as not reliable to our people, to our liberation, and any deal they make in the back room will also come out, because those are not reliable people. So, as I say, I am in some sort of a bind with the statement that I made, but the Swiss role and any future role turns on the fact that monies from their coffers have found their way to the ground and have killed ADF soldiers, our people, in order to foster their peace process. And for that, we will not forget soon.
Thanks, Dev Chair. I think I agree with you. This is what we have to know. The entry of the Swiss and their initial contacts with certain elements in our struggle gave those elements the feeling that they have been legitimized. It gave them the feelings that by dealing with them, they had been legitimized. And for all those who remember when I traveled to Washington for the Washington conference, it was an attempt infiltrators to get us to legitimize their dealings with the Swiss. When that failed, they were made to understand that we are an obstacle to their premature entry without scrutiny into a negotiation facade. And it translated in acts of banning the AGOVC, banning the ADF. They staged a montage in London to attack. They set up death squads. They murdered commanders. They tried and effectively dismantled our resistance in Fako, in Meme, and other places. And it culminated in the killing of hundreds of fighters. You see, what puzzles me is you want to negotiate. You should be strengthening your capability on the ground. But by dismantling those capabilities, you make yourself ineffective and a sitting duck on the issue of negotiation. And I agree also that the Swiss have played an encouraging role in giving these domestic elements an opportunity to believe that if they cannot have their way, they should dismantle the resistance in taking commanders and generals out of battle into foreign land, not for purposes of military training, but engaging in discussion. And what was the rationale? Once the Swiss and the international community realized we were incorruptible, what they tried to do was bypass our leadership, our forces on the ground directly, knowing that they could easily be manipulated. They had no mastery of the issues, and it would be easy to use them to achieve the objective of maintaining Cameroon as one at the detriment of Ambazonians. That notwithstanding, where we are is in a good position. We believe very strongly that we have treated Cameroon on the ground in terms of eliminating its political legitimacy. It can hardly organize an election. It has no mandate. It can hardly determine the direction of the economic and political future of Ambazonia. I'll also come now to the issue of the incitement of tribalism. The incitement of tribalism. Tribes are an integral part of the building blocks of our country. And there's nothing bad in believing in your tribe. There is nothing bad in being a nationalist. But what is dangerous and which amounts to crimes of war, crimes against humanity, is when people deliberately instrumentalize tribe. We say the erection of the in Zambonians have applauded. They have applauded and cheered vices, evil that has come to us all. We had people asking the ADF to leave Lebialem, to leave Fako many years back. We had, because I come from Mezam, they were trying to chase the ADF from Momo. This tribal propagation that had short-term benefit is manifesting itself today within the great state of Fako, of the enemy borrowing this that we had shared from inside to ask Ambazonians within their own country to move out. But there is good news. The good news is this: all those who instrumentalize, tribalism, incite genocide, have failed, whether in Ambazonia or elsewhere. The godfather of tribal politics for his own benefit was Oben Peter Ashu. He is someone with an unmarked grave, and I've been searching for that grave, and I will ask you to speed up the search for that grave, to exhume his body and put him on trial for the hate he engineered in our society. Those who propagated hate just to get positions within the BR regime propagated that hate for their own benefit. Hate never benefits a people. Intoxication, instrumentalization never benefits a people. All those people were appointed by BIA. The Bakwarians never benefited anything from this hate. And let me also send this chilling warning. And before I get there, I will ask the press secretary to put up a short video of what happened to Algerian Hackis who collaborated with the regime in France. What happened to them many years after, because these things have a price.
The burials may have happened decades ago, but that hasn't stopped Abesia Dagid from trying to locate the graves of her twin brothers. The babies died shortly after being born in a camp housing Algerians who had fought for France in the Independence War and were buried in unmarked graves. I found what I was looking for here. That's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see. Now they are there, and I'm a little more relaxed. It makes my heart go boom boom. It brings up anger and hatred in me. When France lost the war, thousands of its collaborators, also known as Hackis, fled Algeria. Considered refugees, they were confined in camps run by the French army. It is here that hundreds, especially newborn babies, died and were buried without their families. For our community, if to this day the human remains of these children are still there, we will consider it a new abandonment and a new betrayal. After identifying the grave sites, families are now arranging fresh, dignified burials. The French government denies knowing the secret barriers ever existed. Even then, work continues to give the dead a proper send-off. I would like to give him a proper burial. Even symbolically, the family dig a hole, give him a funeral, even if we don't have the bones. But at least we give him a decent burial, as he deserves. That's the only thing I would like. The sustained efforts of Haki activists have begun to bear fruit. At some of the burial sites, memorial stones have been erected, bearing the names of the dead. A welcome, though late intervention to bring closure for the affected families.
Thanks a lot. I think this is quite important because Ambazonians are, I'm not quite sure which adjective to use. Yeah. Those who betray us, those who collaborate with Yaoundé, those who enable it to commit genocide. I was talking to a commander, one of whom was arrested, and he explained to me that even the Cameroonian within the team that arrested him showed more sympathy than two Ambazonians, one from Santa and one from the Bafolan. And that the two Ambazonians in the squad tortured him more than the Cameroonians in the squad. And what baffles me is that for 60 years, we tolerated traitors. Traitor will not be tolerated for one day in the United States for one day in France. Those who betrayed France during the occupation of France by Hitler were sent to the gates of hell. In South Africa, every enabler and collaborator was immediately killed. In Palestine, you don't spend one day.
Burning necklace. A burning necklace,
Yes,
right? In South Africa.
in South Africa. But we have in Ambazonia collaborators using human rights institutions, using the value of freedom of speech to instigate and give hope to the killers of our people that they can survive in Ambazonia. I think Ambazonians must be ready. There will be zero tolerance as far as those who collaborate and enable Cameroon's occupation and the commission of genocide in our country.
No, that is very clear, and I think that the video that you just played is very instructive. Sometimes, when we talk about the fact that there is going to be hell to pay, some people look at the Mongo as a short ride. What they fail to understand is that when you are defeated, the first thing you look after is your own skin. You are not looking after those who collaborate with you. When you are running away, you run away whatever loot you can get. And sometimes your vehicle does not have room for the person who was showing you that these are the patriots of Ambazonians home to kill them. Sometimes, most of the time, not even sometimes, most of the time, the defeated, which is normally the occupiers and the government, do not maintain their post because they have lost. And the new leadership, those land, which will be La République du Cameroon, will even persecute you because you join with their genocidaires to not only kill Ambazonians, but sometimes kill them also. So, but that is high level. Let me bring this to a La République du Cameroun. Wonja Wonja is an arm of La République du Cameroun. They hide it whatever level. These are not independent operators. These are not people pushed out based on conviction. These are agents of La République du Cameroun. These are agents of war. Are using a tactic that La République du Cameroun has used and have been trying to use and is using. From the Oben Ashus to the Atanganjis, the Ekemas. It is a pattern of behavior that is laughable when you see one of their souls walking streets as a traditional ruler with a machete in their hands calling for ethnic cleansing. The good news is, if if the war next year meets him, he will be a lucky man. If he is still alive when the war is finished, he will be an unlucky man because he will be alive to see the retribution that a brutalized people can have before he is taken care of, before he is executed for treason and crimes against humanity. And they might just be ordinary who go around following him, maybe because they are bored, maybe because they think that it might just be a means to buy themselves a bag of rice or a bag of gari. Right now, everybody that is working with this man, their names are being taken, their faces are being videotaped. I can promise you that every single one of you will be executed. Every single one of you will be executed for treason. Now, tomorrow, or whenever the opportunity arises. For dogs like you, there really should be no tribunal, but you will be executed by a nation brutalized by your hatred.
Um, I, justice. It is an exemplary kind of document that is designed in the image of the Nuremberg trial, how traitors and those who committed mass atrocities, ended. As I said, the Jews, this World War II ended more than 70 years ago. The Jews are still hunting collaborators and enablers and butchers. The Rwandan genocide ended in 1994, is 26 years now, and they are still holding those who participated in that crime responsible and put in jail. All impunity, collaboration, and enabling colonialism declared by the UN as a crime against humanity will not be tolerated, and there will be no, for all those who are prolonging days of tragedy under Cameroon. It is not an issue of your opinion. No, you cannot have an opinion on the fate of a people under genocide. You cannot simply enable genocide and say, well, it's my opinion to facilitate, enable, and inspire the commission of the crime of genocide. You cannot simply have an opinion on an issue so existential like the lives of a people, and we will take appropriate measures and let them know. Every one of them will have your fire. Every one of you will have your fire. And you will be shocked
That
when
is
it is
what they
consumed.
don't understand.
Yeah.
That is what they
No,
don't understand.
yeah.
They
As you say,
think this thing is
we
just
might not.
a moment in time. That's what they are thinking. That this thing is just a moment in time. As the Israelites showed,
We
as you just mentioned, as these other people from the Rwandans have shown, today it happens even for the rest of life. Whether you live and you are high the boot in Argentina for 30 years or 50 years, that moment in time will catch up with you because they will not rest. we will not rest until we get you. We rest. And I know that some of the time it might be just, oh, I am able to walk here. Oh, I am able to walk there. What can you do? Yeah, what can you do? Raise your tail up. Parade. This is your time. We will get there. Don't worry. As others who voted, contravening all the laws and warnings that were given, have soon discovered, we are methodical. We will get, we will collect the receipts. There will be a day when those receipts that you are writing right now, we will come for collection. So don't worry about that. And our people should not worry. As I say, sometimes they use the illusion. They use illusions. They use projections. But Mandela did not write the long road to freedom because he went to jail and came out of jail within 2 years or within 5 years. We will get them.
Thanks a lot. And as I was saying, Ambazonia must be rest assured. I know sometimes Ambazonians may misconceive what we are doing as maybe a movie where they ask, "So why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that?" We're functioning as an established government that collects taxes, that has the power of borrowing. And so every project requires planning in terms of strategy and tactics, execution in terms of funding. That's why things are slow. We may be able to take out some of these people, but because it will take 1 week to even mobilize the resources, move the manpower, we lose sightings. But as I have said, and I think you have emphasized, we have a file of all of you. Those who speak in tongues, those who enable, those who commit crimes, who facilitate, spy on Ambazonia, and work strenuously, whether in the homeland or in the diaspora, to ensure that we remain a captured people, to ensure that we continuously bury our dead or their bodies keep floating in rivers. We will not put up a peace and reconciliation commission. There will be court-martialing and execution of all those who enable the murder of Ambazonians. It is not your opinion in our country. If you don't like it, move out. Because for 60 years, we suffered pain under this system, curtailment, deprivation, exclusion, and total abuse. And even as in the face of contestation of their rule, their brutality has shown no pity. The extent of their savagery in burning of villages. Who still holds an opinion in the face of this tragedy for us to even live as a neighbor with Cameroon? Except a traitor. And traitors have their fate. They have their place in history. And they have I'll be moving to the last segment of this discussion, and I will kick off with the last segment of this discussion. In all what we have discussed today, in all the analysis we have made in terms of the conception of our strategy for liberation, the impediments that we have faced that are natural and constructed, Where are we and where are we heading to? Now, in your opening statement, you talked about the fact that our war of liberation is good. And I agree with you. And I said the biggest problem of an oppressed people is that they forget about the journey and focus on the destination. They forget about the journey and they focus on the destination. They forget about the micro issues that has compelled us to this resistance and look at the macro issue, which is the destination. And what am I talking about? 4 years ago, Ambazonians in their millions still believed they were Cameroonians. They worshiped Cameroonian flags, they sang the anthem, they believed in Cameroon, they cheered its football team, they were in associations in the diaspora, there were Cameroon associations where the executives were mostly Cameroonians. They were glad to call themselves Cameroonians, to fly in the dilapidated airport in Douala and feel happy. That has drastically changed in 4 years. We've altered our way of thinking, our thought patterns. We have embraced our own nationalism, its symbols. That is a huge step. And that is the first stage in liberation, mental liberation, embracing the symbols of your own nationalism. The actualization of those things in achieving the objective is totally different. The journey from oppression to independence passes through different stages. And look at the stages that we have moved from economic sabotage, undermining Cameroon's ability to engulf our land, and political delegitimization, internationalization. These are positive steps that we have made. Why are Ambazonians still confused? Why are Ambazonians still doubting? The other reason is because this thing started as a popular mass movement where there was massive excitement and euphoria. And so people became confused because the euphoria has tempered down because of a lot of issues that have come up. Yet, we have made significant progress towards the actualization of our dream of independence. But to get there, we must first believe in the things we have achieved and then move it forward. What are the things we are facing today? You have kidnapping for ransom, extortion. You have La République sponsoring massive enablers. You have spies and blacklegs that are pointing the barracks of our soldiers. You have a sense of disillusion in places that infiltrators have made us to lose. We basically lost Manu. We got reduced basically in Fako. Lebialem was almost gone. What will it take for us to make something very simple? Ambazonians are still. The Ambazonian population is looking at, do I show my allegiance to Cameroon or do I show my allegiance to Ambazonia? And the reason is because they still believe we do not have that overwhelming power and objection of authority that can guarantee their security when they show their complete allegiance to us. They still do. On Mondays, in different days, we call for lockdown. What we need to do is to stabilize ground zero, to put in place a stabilization force that can project power on the ground, visible power. It will assure Ambazonians everywhere that if they are faced with the threat of La République, kidnappers, extortionists, that stabilization force can deploy as quickly as possible, protect them, and take away the threat on them. If we project a force that can prevent La République moving into our hinterlands to commit the kinds of crimes that it's committing. That force will assure smaller forces in suburbs and in the periphery that there is a backup force that is able to guarantee their security if they take daring actions against Cameroon. And I think, Mr. Defense Chairman, that has been your cry in the past months. And that's why my office launched the Defense Stabilization Fund to mobilize about 500,000 US dollars to make sure that you can achieve that objective. And based on what I have seen you are doing and the War Council is doing is extremely exciting. We have never been excited since the days General Ivo Fiango emerged and hold Cameroon as we are today. We are more confident in our posture on the ground, in our strength internationally, in the belief of AMBAZONIA that the era of La République du Cameroon has come to an end. We've never been confident. It might not be visible, but and not so begin to see the work that they have been doing. And I would still call on Ambazonians to believe in the Ambazonian Defense Forces, in your leadership in the War Council, and in managing and organizing the people who on a daily basis are making sure our soldiers are equipped, they are treated, they are respected, they are honored. And Ambazonians must be rest assured that the era of La République is over. It is not coming back. And the earlier they recommit and rededicate, will give you the tool and the forces the tool to make sure that we don't hear of things like Swiss talks to end Cameroon's era in our country.
Thanks a lot, Mr. President. Thank you. Thanks so much. There are certain points to emphasize, but just piggybacking on what you were saying. Look, it is a long slog, and it's going to be a long slog. But what gives me confidence, what makes us get up, I mean, you, and everyone in the War Council and the cabinet, I think, is the absolute heroism that runs through the spine of the army of our people, of the Ambazonian Defense Forces. When you look like the manager, Sumo Pikin, when you look at Fako, you come down to Meme, you look at Meme and the odds that these guys faces. When you go to Manu, and in the face of all this counter-revolutionary messaging and tribalism and all that, you see these guys operate in that field, willing to stop that they are the army of Ambazonia. Look at, as you indicated, how Lebialem almost went. Look at Lebialem today. The heroism. Look at our Bui Brigade. The stitching of the fabric of the armory to the command to now the forces on the field. Look, we were on this journey when we you launched the contender project, and this work began or accelerated. Imagine the celebration that went on in La République du Cameroon and in the sectors in this struggle that was not the Ambazonian Governing Council or the ADF. The Ambazonian Governing Council or the ADF. Imagine the jubilation that went on in La République and in other places that were not. Let me repeat again, the Ambazonian Governing Council or the ADF, when they took out General Ivo, and then when the huge haul of the mobile force of the Ambazonian Defense Force was tricked in Kumbu and taken out. And they saw the amount of weaponry that was taken and they handed it over to La République du Cameroon. And in all that, they could not believe that La République was not going to run through our bases, run through our camps, because if that type of a haul of materials could be taken away, they did not believe that we had anything in our hands. So it has been a long journey of fighting, because La République saw an advantage and tried to push that advantage with what happened in Bui. Attack us. Then the coronavirus came in and joined with that. In all that, with the launching of the stabilization fund, with all that, here we are today, strong, getting stronger. And so it baffles me how Ambazonians will not stand today and feel euphoric that they are on the right path, that they have the right leadership, that they have the right strategy, and the most important basic contribution they can put forward is their confidence. Their confidence in what they have achieved and what they can achieve. And their confidence in that if we stand on this path and convince our neighbors to stand on this path, we will be able to get the stabilization fund. We will be able to begin with the actual governance of the state of Ambazonia. The strategy is there, is very plain. The evidence is there, is very plain. The hard work and trustworthiness of the leadership is there, very plain. The most important ingredient is the Ambazonians people. Their faith, their euphoric confidence, their assurance that they are on the right path. I know you made one point that, let me just reiterate that point. And that point is that some people confuse the destination with the road we are traveling. And they use that destination as a means of sabotaging our path. What you say, they are pooping and throwing broken bottles on the path that we are traveling by using our destination. And that destination is a free and independent Ambazonia that respects the rights of anybody, the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech, association, and everything. That is the destination. You cannot use those rights. You cannot use them at this moment when we are facing an existential crisis, and you talk about your betrayal of our people at this moment as your right to free speech. That is our destination. We are not there yet. Right now, there is one right that supersedes every other in Ambazonia, and that is the right to life. Because without life, all of those rights have no meaning. So that is a word to a wise. It's also very, very important, as the president indicates, for our population to become revolutionary. Let me be very plain. The Ambazonian Defense Forces have military command. It has militaries, forces fighting on the field. We are in a liberation struggle. The population must also have a revolutionary mentality. Why do I bring this point? If the Ambazonian Defense Forces arrest you and ask you that, why did you point the compound of the commander of the Ambazonian Defense Forces who is now fighting in Manu? Why did you point his compound to La Republique's military over here in Munya, and the house was burned down and his sister killed in that house? And you say that, oh, I was afraid of the Cameroon army. What should be the reaction of the Ambazonian resistance? You are afraid of the army, so you point them out to be killed. La République du Cameroon's occupation army, you are afraid of them because of the inhumane acts they can carry on you. And you are willing, because you are afraid, to sell the resistance, the Ambazonian resistance. What should they do to you? Do you think that it will be better for them to also make you or others like you afraid of them, or more afraid of them, than La République du Cameroon? Tomorrow, you don't show the next house or the next one or go to the next vote. Anybody of our population who looks at this as being afraid of the resistance or being afraid of La République du Cameroon, it means that you really don't have any skin in the game. It means that this is just like, I am a neutral, and these two people, they are is their stuff. Resistance or lack thereof must come from your stomach. It's not a question of I am afraid of this or that. It's a question of who are you? It's a question of I am an Ambazonian. As an Ambazonian, we are in a war of resistance against genocide, ethnic cleansing, and occupation against La République du Cameroon. And because we are fighting against these evils, that is why I will resist you. So I am 8 million strong. I am part of that. And we exist, whether we are in the bushes or in our home. Not afraid of this or that, but because in the bottom of our stomach, we are Ambazonian. And if you are afraid, the only thing you can do is that I am a coward, not that I am afraid of that. I am an Ambazonian and I am a coward. That is why I sold out the resistance. Sorry, Mr. President, you can take us home.
Thanks a lot, Dev Chair. Very compelling, very compelling. Ambazonians have come a long way, and I believe that we are where we are supposed to be. After 4 years of resistance in this phase of our struggle, we have, when you looked at the gendarme of 4 years ago, you look at the B officer of 4 years ago, it's not the same person you see. That sense of their invincibility has been shattered. They are in bulletproof vests on our street. They are hiding behind sandbags. And you can be rest assured that the War Council and its leadership will smoke them behind those sandbags. Ambazonians should not confuse themselves. The journey has been an interesting journey. It still remains an interesting journey. Even though we have thousands of our people being killed, we still have thousands of others who are resisting. And as you have said, every Ambazonian should have no excuse. I see people out here who are falling victim of kidnapping. And they are like, oh, I can't support such a struggle. It baffles me because these are same people who've lived under terror and humiliation and never uttered a word under Cameroon.
Mr. President, just a second. Just a second. Let me just 1 minute on that point. I beg
yes,
you.
come in.
Look. I laugh at this because sometimes, and look, you will not find anybody as stern and intolerant of kidnappings and ransoming as me. That is why in the code of conduct is clearly written out there. That is why you see soldiers go into school, into camp. Before they are handed one material, they go through training and receive that training and look into the eyes of generals and their teachers, and they teach them this is how the ADFs behave before they are sent to their own communities. Even those in those communities that generate, we send them to school and they have to travel there, and the code of conduct is part of their initiation. But one thing that I will also want, when you hear that, oh, my person has been up, they are asking for this amount or that amount. Not. The War Council has banned the sale of brasseries product in our land, of Kaji beer in our land, of the economic instruments that La République comes, be able to get money, finances out of our land that funds their war effort. So the soldier on the field who is there comes to your store and you are carrying brasseries products and they arrest you and they tell you that your fine for doing this is 200, 300 or 400 or whatever. And you say that is kidnapping. If if they execute you, you will say the crime does not fit the punishment, right? So how do they hold accountable store owners or people who contravenes this law that makes La République du Cameroon get even out the little finances that finances their war against these young men and women on our street, on in our land, finances the burning of our villages? How do they get a punishment that is commensurate with the and not more than the crime? And so sometimes, especially those in the diaspora, when you hear about this, start asking them, what was the reason that this happened? If they had a store, did you carry these drinks? Were these drinks found in the store? Because that is part of some of the problem. Sorry, I said a minute. I've taken 5.
No. I'm always glad when you are on. I'm glad because you put it as straight as it's supposed to be. I'm glad you emphasize, the spirit to the letter of, the practices of the War Council, and I'm also very, very much impressed that command and control on the ground has demonstrated a high sense of discipline in the way they have conducted themselves. I know also that you have faced and your forces have faced a lot of hate, blackmail, tribalism, and all forms of attack from both domestic and internal foes. But God alone knows how they have survived. One thing is certain, especially those who give the excuse of some of the practices on the ground. And what is certain is this: our war of liberation has been infiltrated by a lot of persons who have created proxy groups, and some people out here who thought by throwing $200 into 2 to 3 men, that has made them to have a skin in the game by having forces on the ground, reach a certain moment where they could not sustain the ability of those forces to defend themselves. They abandoned those forces. We have people in Washington. I know people from Mezam who ran forces in Mezam. But because overseeing forces is a massive endeavor that requires a massive institution, they abandon those forces to themselves. Some have been killed because they lack basic materials to defend themselves. And as you say, and right, sometimes when you have Ambazonian media outlets, they post different domestic media outlets deliberately propagating the narrative of the occupier, kidnappers, enabler phones who voted are arrested, and they talk about forces kidnapping. So this deliberation in misconception and propagating the narrative of the occupier has engineered, in the mindset of many Ambazonians, a mission on our forces. And some have enabled the occupier to arrest our forces. Some have enabled the occupier to locate our forces. And where I'm going to is this. It's in what you said. People should not take the idealism in our objectives as an instrument to use to define our journey. We seek freedom, but the conditions under which these things will prevail aren't there yet. You have thousands of forces. Some were mechanics, some were teachers, nurses, students, presented themselves to the battlefield for the defense of the first democracy in the continent of Africa. Ambazonians in their millions are always complaining. Some decide to even join the enemy because of little dips or setbacks. Imagine one day, General Efang will become so disgruntled with what is going on and abandon his post. The liberation struggle collapses. We have been in this thing for more than 30 years. This time, we have walked traits, patriots, heroes, villains. We have seen the good times. We've seen the bad times. We have seen comrades killed, comrades kidnapped. We never gave up. We never relented. Even when we didn't have thousands of people shouting and jumping. We were organizing demonstrations of 15 people. We never gave up. What that dedicated through the thick of a struggle, while others easily throw their hands in the air in surrender, and not only that, ending up on the side of those who continue to kill their people. How do you explain that? This is what Ambazonians must know. This is a collective struggle. It is not how you feel. You don't engage because you are happy. You don't engage because things are right. You don't engage because there is collaboration, there is unity. You engage because it is an obligation in the face of a threat on the life of a people to stand up and be counted. Heroes and warriors are not known when the path is smooth and certain. Great generals emerge when things are tough. During World War II, the life of the champion, and this should speak of our time, the choice in front of Amazonians. You had Chamberlain, who thought he could cozy up to Adolf Hitler. He could play platitude with Adolf Hitler. He could even accept to surrender territories of different countries in order to placate Adolf Hitler. You had a Winston Churchill who rose up even facing bombs on Buckingham Palace, with facing threat of all sorts across the globe. But difficulties, but could rally the people. In France, you had the Pétain, who collaborated with Adolf Hitler, made his country. And you had the Charles de Gaulle, who even took flight into Africa for safety, but mobilized own people. In times like the moment, you have a choice between the Chamberlain and the Winston Churchill. In times like the moment, you have a choice between the Pétain and the Charles de Gaulle. The choice you make, you also have a choice between the Nkrumahs and the Fonjas. But at the end, the choice you make will determine whether your country is free or in servitude for 60 years, whether your people are empowered or enslaved, whether you are liberated or you are occupied. So the next time you think of describing us warmongers, next time you think of calling us extremists, I want you to look back 60 years ago and think about the men who acted like you wanted. what they offered you. I know at times you have thought to collaborate. I know many a times you think, we are part of the problem. But this is what you have to know. And I want every Ambazonian to look into the screen, right into our eyes, because we are able to look into your eyes. We are able to tell you we have never been financially or politically corrupt. We are able to tell you that in the past 30 years, we have served more than 10 other leaders. We are able to look into your eyes and we are the ones who have tried as much as possible and I am able to look into this camera and say, we are the ones who have hardly or never instigated, caused to be instigated against other forces, tribalism against other leaders, hate against other leaders. We are the who have never tried to impose ourselves and deny others the right to partake in the liberation of their homeland. Would you be able to look back into this camera and say the same of yourself? Can the other leaders be able to look straight into this camera and say the same of themselves? My fellow countrymen and women, at the level of international, we have successfully altered the misconceptions about Ambazonia. We have the perception about our objectives. We have cemented our place at the level of the international community as a people determined to end the tyranny of the country. We have won the admiration and respect of others, not by how fast we blinked, by how quickly we moved to them, but how steadfast we have upheld us. Conscientizing Ambazonians, we can say millions and millions of our people in their overwhelming majority believe in the dream of Ambazonia. In our existence, we have erected an army, a uniform that parades, that controls territory, that protects the population, that fights and honor our flag, our anthem, territory. And we have put in place an organization accountable, transparent, mature, and with the best caliber of men and women to steer this ship ashore. The rest is in your hands to commit. Good night. God bless you all.
Thanks, boy. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.